Everyone has an opinion because it's free. When I give my opinion, I'm accused of not being considerate. The fact I haven't dragged you is me showing consideration. Thank you. Hashtag Toy Talks. That wasn't actually the quote I was going to read, but I figured that I would just read it out anyway because I have posted that on my Instagram and Snapchat. But I did, in fact, have another. See how now I'm ready to find the actual one. I feel like God is trying to tell me, no, Toya, I don't need you to find another quote. That's the quote. You know what? I'm going to go with that because the quote I was actually going to read out, I can't find. But the quote that I created myself, God said, you must read that one out. Hello and welcome to the Toy Talks podcast. My name is, come on, Toye, Toya. Listen. Anyway, you know what? Before I get started, I need to do a disclaimer. The opinions shared on this podcast are mine. And the giveaway is because it's called Toya Talks. But for the avoidance of all doubt, because some employment agencies are feeling to get dragged on this episode, I need to do a disclaimer. The opinions shared on this podcast are my own. They do not reflect anybody else's opinion. They are all mine. Is that good enough as a disclaimer? Good. I get asked questions all the time about employment agencies, and I've obviously used them throughout my career and recently had interactions with them because obviously I'm looking to make a couple of moves. But more importantly, it's the negative interactions a lot of people have had with employment agencies. And I posed a question on my Snapchat and I said, would you like me to discuss agencies in a bit more depth? And it was a resounding yes. And I thought this would also give me the opportunity to drag a couple of agencies and tell you guys a few agencies that I think you should be aware of, in my humble opinion. Now, when we talk about employment agencies are effectively bridging the gap between you and a potential employer, a potential business. And what tends to happen more times than not is they get paid a commission. So every time they place somebody in an organization, they get paid a pre-agreed, I can't get my words out. They get paid a pre-agreed commission, and that's a contract between themselves and the organization. It's got nothing to do with you, okay? So their job is effectively to source a candidate and put forward a candidate for a particular role that's being advertised by an organization. Now, an organization doesn't exclusively have to use one agency. They can use more than one, and they can also use their internal resources to advertise for a particular role. So you see, some of these agencies, they move like cowboys, and they really believe that this big wide world is the big wild west, and they move mad because effectively and fundamentally they are salespeople, because every time they place somebody, they get paid quite a big commission in some roles, depending on the seniority of the person they're placing, and obviously that seniority denotes how much that person will be paid. So I find that with agencies, they are quite competitive, and so should it be. They should be competitive. They're trying to get paid. They're trying to get their commission. And I tend to find with agencies, they're not always subject matter experts in the field in which they're placing people. And it depends on the agency. Some agencies, they focus more on certain areas. So I don't know, maybe if you work as an accountant, you have some agencies that are specialists for accountants, or you have some agencies that do different roles. Okay, so that's setting the scene when it comes to agencies. Now I'm gonna go and I'll go as far as saying this. I have definitely learned through my career that it's important to change the way in which you interact with employment agencies. And I know why I'm saying this, because when you act or when you communicate to them that you are desperate or they are your only hope, and sometimes that may even be the fact, they will move mad. So they move mad anyway, but they will move madder. Do you understand? Because for them, they're just looking to place somebody and get paid. And there is no loyalty amongst agencies. So what I mean by that is you'll have agency that will call you. Maybe they've seen your CV on a job board. And they're like, oh, this job is fantastic. When I saw your CV, I know it was you. I know you need this job. I know it was you. You know, they will gaslight you. You will even feel like you've got the job before they've even submitted your CV. But you better understand that they've probably called 3 or 4 people before you. So when they're submitting CVs to a potential business, it's not just your CV. There may be about 4 or 5 CVs that they've presented to this organization. And depending on how many employment agencies this organization has looking for a candidate, and an organization can have about 4 agencies that they're using. And that particular agency that's representing you, maybe you're one of 4 that they've put forward for. So let's think about it for a second. Like, yes, you could have a 1 in 6 chance, a 1 in 10 chance, whatever. You still have a chance of being called to interview. But the reason why I put it so bluntly like this is because some people really are loyal to one agency. Are you joking? It's like when you go dating. When you're dating somebody, I always say, when people go dating, you're not exclusive to that one person you're dating. Date quite a few people. Now, in my dating days, it was non-sex though. I was dating many people at the same time. Until, what is dating? You're just test driving. The only difference is I'm not sleeping with them. It's the same with agencies. You test drive all of them. It's when you're like, oh, this is the only agency I'm using. You are limiting your chances of securing a role if you use one agency. And agencies will ask you, are you with any other agency? My answer is, yes, I am. Or which ones? I don't really want to discuss it at this point. I don't tell them. I don't. If you want to tell them that they're the only agency, that's up to you. But me, I don't want to lie. I just want them to understand that they're not the only agency that's representing me. I.e., for the particular role that they're putting me forward for, yes, they're the only agency representing me for that particular role. But there's other agencies I'm using. They need to be kept on their toes. Then they will say to you, oh, if you secure a role with another agency, can you let me know? I always say yes. I don't have the time. The same way they don't have the time to solicit feedback when I've been rejected for a role is the same way I don't have the time to call other agencies to let them know, oh, by the way, I found a job and they're not the one that found a job for me. Oh, please. No, I don't owe them that loyalty. I think it's important to put yourself first when it comes to agencies. You've got to understand they're after their commission. A lot of them really don't care about you. And why should they? This is a business. They're not running a charity here. They need to place certain candidates. They have, their targets that they have to meet. And every candidate to them is a potential to meet their target. And that is the reality of the way some recruiters think. Don't mind the way they're telling you that you have a fantastic interview voice. They're telling you, oh my God, you use your vocabulary very well. They will gas you so that you feel like, oh my God, I feel so bad if I let this agency down. No, that's not the truth. One thing that I've really learned about agencies, once I had a really bad experience with a particular agency, and I'm going to tell you about that experience in this episode. But before I get to that, the bad experience that I had taught me a couple of things. The main thing it taught me, is that you have to project manage these agencies. You have to project manage them. That's why on my CV, before I had project management experience, like hands-on in the office experience, there were on my CV in the list of experience, I put project management because I've been project managing agencies for a long time. How do you project manage an agency? An agency will send me a job description and I can see it's incomplete, but they're so eager to put my CV forward. Maybe this particular role, they found it difficult to find candidates. I'll say, excuse me, this job description needs to be updated. I need to have more clarity, XYZ. Yes, and I forced them to go to the particular organization and update that CV, to update that JD. Sorry. When it comes to salary, I always tell the agency, don't negotiate my salary. I can do that myself, because there've been times when particular agencies, they can't be bothered to negotiate because they're scared that either I'm going to pull out if they don't negotiate or the company are going to react badly to a negotiation. One thing I've taught within Toya Talks and when I did my live event in 2018 is the importance of negotiating a contract. But agencies don't have that as a focus for them because they're just trying to find a candidate. Things like negotiating a contract that you've managed to secure for an agency is your responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the recruiter. You get some recruiters that know how to put their heads from gear 1 to gear 2, and they realize, if I negotiate this salary up to get them more money, I'm more likely to get a high commission. Some of them, maybe they haven't reached their target that month, so they're so desperate they don't even want to negotiate the apple cart. So they'll just say, oh please, this is what they're offering. Maybe after a year when you're there you can negotiate. No, Negotiate from the jump, because I'm telling you now, if you negotiate a salary in the beginning, it's easier than doing it when you're about 6 to 9 months into a contract. It's very difficult, especially when you know for 6 months you're on probation and you think after your probation now you'll be negotiating. No, negotiate it from the start. I'm going to digress slightly and say, you know, when I had my Toya Talks live event in 2018, it was absolutely fantastic. Sold out 2 weeks before the actual live event. It was brilliant. And one of the things I taught quite high level was about negotiation. And when I do a Toya Talks this year, 2020, I'm going to go into a bit more depth. I'm going to mark up an employment contract and basically explain some of the key clauses and how to negotiate them, including your salary, and give you the science behind negotiating and things like that. So that will be Toya Talks 2.0. It's a live event that will be happening this year, 2020. So make sure you listen out and follow me on my social media networks. Platform, to see when I announce that, because the tickets will be live 2 months before the actual date, and once they're gone, they are gone. Anyway, I digress. Back to the matter at hand, employment agencies. So remember, I was telling you guys about a bad experience that I had with an agency, and this particular agency, I'm not going to lie, when they reached out to me, so I had sent my CVs, I just cascaded it to a couple of companies, and then I did a search for a particular role and found an agency that were recruiting for a company. So I sent my CV off to them. Within 24 hours, I got a phone call. So let's call it the recruiter Amir. So Amir called me, and he basically, you know, he said, "Oh, you applied for this role. Da, 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 da." He goes, "Your CV looks really, really good. I think you could definitely secure an interview." Now, as we got into detail about the role, and I was desperate, you know, at the time, he told me that the role was at Heathrow Airport. I said, "Jesus. So I will leave my house at the time in North London to be traveling to Guinea? Oh, no. That can never be me." But I thought, you know what? I'm desperate. So I'm just going to go with it. So about 2 or 3 days later, he called me back. He said, "Toya, they'd love to interview you. They really, really impressed with your CV, your skills, and your experience. They really want to interview you. However, they need you to do a test. So I'm going to send you the test and you do it, and then I send it off to them." I said to him, "A test?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What type of a test is this?" He said, "Oh, they're going to send a contract for you to mark up, and they would like you to summarize it." Now, on the face of it, it's quite an easy task, but I have a few views around tests. Like the level I'm at in my career, I don't do tests anymore. I'm so sorry. I just don't. And the field that I'm in, we don't really do tests. That's, you know, I'm in procurement and contract management. We don't do tests. Now, had he told me about the test beforehand, I could have made a more informed decision about whether I wanted to be put forward for this role. He deliberately didn't tell me. And I think he did it because he knew that this was a breaking point for a lot of candidates that he had tried to submit for this particular role. So I said to him, "Can you just send it over? I'll have a look at it and I'll make a decision." He goes, "What do you mean make a decision? In order for me to take you to interview stage with them, you have to do it." So it was being quite pushy. I says, "Well, they said that it needs to be done. I need to have a look at it." And I remember it was a week or two before I was due to travel to New York. And I told him this, and he says, "Well, you know, you could do it while you're on holiday." I didn't say nothing. I said, "Amir, can you send it to me?" He said, "Yes." I said, "I'll call you back." This man sent me a 35-page contract. They want me to mark up the contract, highlight some of the clauses which potentially pertain to risk. They would like a summary of the contract, and they would like me to redraft the contract. I counted about 3 or 4 tests there within one. So I called him back. I said, "Amir, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do this test." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I don't think I've got anything to prove, if you want me to be honest." I said, "I'm coming with a law degree. I'm coming with LPC, legal practice course. I went to law school. I'm also coming with a master's in law." I said, "I'm also doing my SIPS level 4 diploma." I said, "And now you're asking me to do another test?" And I said, "No one told me about this test in the beginning. And we're talking about 35 pages here. I said, no. And I'm going on holiday. It's just not going to work. I says, it's bad enough that it's all the way at Heathrow. He went mad. He's like, oh, but at the end of the day, you know, if a company wants you to do this, you do it. And at the end of the day, you need the job. When this man was rambling, I realized that he's finding it difficult to make this role attractive to candidates. He's struggling to find candidates. That's what I deduced from it. Secondly, he knows that the test is absolutely ridiculous in every way possible. And therefore, that's why he deliberately omitted telling me that in the beginning. And thirdly, he's frustrated because he's probably heard this no about 4 or 5 times already. And now he's taking out his whole anger on me. This is how this madman put the phone down on me. You know, when God said vengeance is his, I believe him, and God is never late. God is always on time. I was ready to call and cuss this guy. I said, no. That's not what I'm going to do. I sent him an email. I said, Amir, we were just speaking on the phone. I'm going to assume that there was a problem with the network and therefore we were disconnected. But for the avoidance of doubt, I just want to make it clear that I do not wish to be put forward for interview. I don't wish to attend an interview that you have scheduled because you omitted to telling me about this test, 35-page contract, and these are the requirements. I don't have the time. The level I'm at in my career is past the stage of doing such tests. But in the event that I knew about the test beforehand, I don't expect a test to be as vigorous as this. And this maybe is a prelude for the type of role this is going to be. I don't think this is for me. Didn't hear anything from him. Now, when Amir had put me forward for this role, he had put me forward for another role. So there was another role based in London he'd put me forward for, but the one based in London, we hadn't heard back from them. So obviously the one in Heathrow had proceeded quite quickly. Later on that day, I received a response from Amir. Toya, comma, no hi, hello, Toya, comma, thank you for your email. Received. And the role that I put you forward for in London, it's a no-go. That was it. I said, well, fine. And at that time, I was really desperate because where I was really, really unhappy. I needed to leave. But one thing I know, is, you know, when you bad mind somebody, God said vengeance is his, I believe him because God is always on time for me. In my mind, I'd already cast this Emir out. All his ancestors, I was talking to them and telling them about this stupid fool. I cussed him in my mind. But I said, you know what, Toya? Just let it go. Whatever is for you is for you. What is for you will never pass you. You came with a clean heart and clean mind. God has got you. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Bring, 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 bring. I answered it. Hi, Toya. It's Amir. Yes, Amir. How can I help you? Well, you know, before I continue, I just want to say I think we got off to a wrong foot. You know, I was having a bad day and I took it out on you. Remember, this was 2 weeks later. I said, Amir, listen, you've called me. What is the issue? He said, well, you know that role that I put you forward for in London? We didn't hear back from them. I've heard back from them now and they'd like to interview you. I paused. Amir, before we move forward, I'm going to address something with you. You need to be very, very, very careful how you deal with people, especially candidates. Because this industry is small enough that we have a lot of access to each other. And therefore, it takes me telling another, maybe colleague of mine, that your agency is bad and this particular agent, i.e. you, no one should ever go to him for anything. I said, the way you dealt with me was not only unprofessional, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing that that's the way that you chose to represent yourself to me. I have every right to tell you that I don't want to be put forward to a job. The same way you took it upon yourself to omit certain information, then when you provided me with that information, I have every right to take a stand and say no. And that's what I did. And you allowed your anger to get the better of you. Now you've come with your tail between your legs because now you've realized actually this other company want to interview me, and this is now commission for you, 2.0. I said, if we're going to proceed going forward, then I'm going to make something completely clear to you. Don't ever talk to me or any other candidate the way you spoke to me 2 weeks ago. I said, it took every part of me to not make a formal complaint to your boss. Now you would like us to proceed because now this other company, but you are the one that told me it's a no from them. If I tell you it's a no from me, there's nothing you could do. Toya, I apologize. You're right. Anyway, long story short, he put me forward for the role. I had a 2-stage interview and actually got that particular job. And when it came to negotiating the salary, I told Amir, don't get involved. I'm going to negotiate it myself. And I negotiated it with them directly. And I actually got a 25% increase to what was actually advertised. And obviously that meant Amir made a higher commission rate. And I will go on to say that Amir really, after that situation, we got on really well, because the team, whenever the team needed like staff, we would use them as a preferred supplier. And 9 times out of 10, I was training those people. So I had a bit of input to the recruitment process and therefore was working with him quite closely. And I think the lesson that he learned is you never know. You never know. The person that you're treating like crap as a candidate could be the head of department tomorrow that will need to use an agency to recruit for that particular department. And there is your commission. And I definitely think he learned from it. He never spoke to anybody. Well, the people that he placed where I was working, he never spoke to them like that again. But it allowed me to realize that when it comes to agencies, it is important that you put yourself first and you ensure that you assert yourself. You ensure that listen, these agencies come like human resources, you know. Some of them, they don't even know what they're doing. They're just faking it. They're faking it all the way to a commission check. So you have to get to a point where you realize that you have to take charge. This is your career we're talking about here. No matter how desperate you are, you don't talk to people or treat people like that. And some of them, they like to put the fear of God into you because it's almost like they know you're desperate. The agencies, recruiters, they can smell desperation a mile off. So if you tell them that you've been looking for a job since the 20th century and that job hasn't come, believe me, they'll force you to take a job you don't want. I've done it. I've been there, done it. In my 20s, in my early 20s, an agency forced me to take in a role that I didn't want. I lasted maybe a week. And that person already collected their commission. Now, there are some agencies where their commission is paid on a stage basis. So if you're there for if you're a permanent member of staff and you've been placed somewhere, you've been there for 6 months, they get maybe part of their commission. If you've been there then 12 months, they get the rest. So it's also in their interest for you to stay there for as long as possible. So it is definitely a bit of leverage on your side to make sure that you are put forward and therefore accept a role that you're happy with. Don't allow them to dictate to you what you should not accept, because when you walk into that office, you're not walking in there with the agency. They've already collected their check. They're on to the next role. There are a few agencies that I would recommend that, like, I don't rate them. In my humble opinion, these agencies are crap. And I will start with Investigo. 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 They're crap. The recruiters they have in there, I'm telling you right now, confidentiality is not their strong point. How is it that they'll be telling me that my manager has submitted a CV and they've submitted her for a role of head of department for another company? Why are you telling me that for? And little did they know, my manager at the time had told me that she was planning to resign. I don't understand how Investigo works. I'm sorry, I don't get it. And so where I was working, one of the perm roles I was working at, they placed the head of department. And when I had left, because I was with them, I was on their books from before. I don't know whether the head of department spoke to them. I don't know. But they called me fishing for information about what role I was going on to. Like, we're not stupid. As candidates, especially in my industry, we talk, especially in the organization I was at. I didn't know that my other colleagues had joined this particular agency. So we knew what they were doing. They were trying to fish for information. They'd placed a lot of people in this particular organization. And I feel like what they were trying to do is spy for the head of department and equally as well cause problems. So Investigo, I'm so sorry, it's a no from me. Michael Page. I don't know why Michael Page think they're amazing, you know. I actually don't understand. I think it's because they're international, so they think that they're the best thing before sliced bread. They ghosted me like an ex-boyfriend or an ex-date. They ghosted me. And one thing I don't like about Michael Page is I registered with them, spoke to an agent and everything. Oh yeah, when we see roles, we'll put you forward for da-da-da. Didn't hear anything. Didn't hear nothing. 9 months, then they ringing me. We're just calling to see if there's any update to your CV. What's your current work situation? Well, if you had called me about certain roles, you would know what that work situation is. But y'all ghosted me, and then you're calling me. Hey, hello, is that Toya? Toya? Hi, yeah, it's Michael Page. Fuck off. Haze. I feel like Haze are really trying to haze you because the hoops that you have to jump through to just get on their books is really not worth it. I need to understand what is so great about Haze. Hello, are you there? What have we done to you? I consider myself very experienced in my field. I've worked for, as I've told you previous episodes, some very big hitters in the game. Goldman Sachs. Let me name drop for you. Goldman Sachs, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Yeah, I've worked and listen, like I'm good at what I do. But Hayes will behave like they're doing me a favor. Fuck out of here. And another agency that I don't rate, in my personal opinion, Argyle Recruitment. Listen, Argyle Recruitment, their turnover of recruiters is mad. It must be mad because I think I had like 4 or 5 contacts. And they're the type of, for me, in my experience, they'll put you forward for a role and maybe you don't get the role or you don't get called to interview, whatever the case may be. They will never give you feedback. So I just stopped interacting with them. A few months ago, I got a call. Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm new here at Argyle Recruitment, and I just wanted to understand what you're looking for in a role. I said, excuse me, what do you mean? What am I looking for in a role? Have you got my CV? Yes, we do, but I need to just like find out because I'm new. Okay, if you're new, then maybe you need to go and speak to your other colleagues because I've been on your books for 2 years. And after you submit me for a role, I don't hear anything else. So I'd like you to remove me from your database, please. Yeah, I'm very hard with the agencies. Don't get it twisted. There is a likability factor. There's a rapport that you build with certain agencies, but there's some agencies that you just know are doo-doo. So you have to treat them like the doo-doo they are. And then the managing director of that particular agency had the fucking cheek to ring my phone, leave a voicemail. Hi, Toya. I overheard the conversation that you had with Jennifer, and I was a bit concerned at the fact that you have lost hope in the agency, and I'd like to reconnect with you. Fuck off. I don't want to reconnect. Unless you're reconnecting with me with a particular opportunity, you go and connect yourself somewhere else because I'm not interested. Did I call him back? I ain't got time. Please. No, thank you. So, yes. So, in no particular order, the agencies that are just pants. Hayes, Michael Page, Investigo, and Argyle Recruitment. Thank you. There's something that irritates me to my spine about particular agencies. Now, the reality is agencies, recruiters don't have time to meet all the candidates that they put forward for roles. And I like that because I haven't got the time to be going to meet everybody. And they rely on conversations. Sometimes they'll ask for Skype and things like that. But like I said, the reality of meeting every single candidate is quite slim because, the market's changing. They're busy. You're busy, whatever. There are some agencies that request and say they have to meet you face to face. And I never understood it. And I know part of it is because they want to meet you and they want to see what you look like and they want to see how you dress and everything. And depending on the organizations that they have on their books, maybe they are like really like blue chip corporate. Now, for me, I have worked in corporate organizations. And I've worked for other organisations that are not corporate. I'm not really a corporate girl, I've got to be honest. I think I got a lot of my experience in the corporate world. When I say experience, I mean like work experience in the corporate world. But I think I equally got my experience in just the general world of work. But it was good to have certain names on my CV. It's opened a lot of doors, I'm not going to lie to you. But a lot of these agencies that have asked to see me, there was a time in my 20s, I used to go meet them, I'll bunk off work or I would go at lunchtime or I'd go after work. And what I tend to find is they make an assumption about you. And sometimes you'll go and meet them and they'll ghost you, you know. They will ghost you like a Tinder swipe. Ghost you. And then I've just made a decision. I'm not going to meet any agency. No. Unless you have a role there and you have submitted me for that particular role. That may be the only time if you request to meet me face to face that I come face to face. Otherwise, I'm not coming to meet you face to face. If you want to see my face, ask me for a picture. I'll send it to you as a JPEG. I'm not coming to see your face and I don't want you to look in my face. What kind of rubbish? There was an agency that called me recently and they said that they see my CV on a particular job board for the industry that I'm in. And he said, listen, you know, the market's really picking up. We had a really lovely conversation. And he said, you know, Toya, I would really love to invite you to the office to come and meet me. I said, Mark. He said, yes, Toya. I said, I don't actually meet agencies anymore. He said, why? I said, because I find that I've spent a lot of time meeting agencies and I haven't spent enough time going to interviews. And what I will say is, for now, I don't think that it serves either of us for me to come and have a meeting with you. But if there is a role that you want to submit me for, i.e. one in the works, and you provide me with a JD and therefore you want to then meet me face to face, that would be fine. But you can understand that, you know, I'm currently working at the moment, and also as well, I'm on the books of other agencies, and I don't want to be you know, treating your agency with preferential treatment when I don't meet any agencies. I says it's just my personal, you know, preference. He was like, you know what, Toya, you're honest, and I respect that. The guy sent me a job role recently. He said, Toya, if this one is suitable, let's meet. I said, this one is not suitable. Yeah, it's not every day go to meet, especially when you don't have job. So I now have to put my fingers in my pocket to now afford to come to travel to you. Because there's no job, or you just want to go through my CV as if my CV is not in English. What's wrong with you? I also recently shared with you that I'm a contractor and therefore I'm not a permanent member of staff. I have my own company, my limited company, and I contract my services through my limited company and I charge a day rate. And because I'm a contractor, it has meant that obviously I have to interact and get on the books of agencies. And because of all the lessons I've learned and experiences with agencies, it had stood me in good stead for contracting. And I know how to deal with them. And obviously I've grown and matured as a professional and as a person. So I am very hard with these agencies, but I have learned so much about agencies and other things as well through the process of contracting. And I think it's important. Yes, you have to build rapport with certain agencies. You have to, you know, have the type of relationship that if a role comes up, they think of you. But it needs to be a balance, and you need to be very forthright about what you want in a role. They will respect you for it. The professional recruiters will respect you for it, because they get messed around by candidates all the time, because candidates tell them what they want to hear. And then when push comes to shove and it's now time to go to interview, they will ghost the agency. So agencies, you know, they're coming. It's almost like they've had bad experiences in the past. It's like, you know, starting a relationship with somebody and you know you've got baggage from a previous relationship, and you being the candidate have had bad experiences with an agency, you're coming with your baggage. It's the exact same thing. But I believe that having honest conversations with agencies and saying, listen, this is what I want, this is how much I expect to get paid, you know, this is what the market is saying, I've done the research, I've looked at competitors, this is what I want, can you do this? And they respect you for it. Because a lot of the conversations I've had recently with agencies, I'm telling you, I've built relationships with agencies spanning across 10 years, and there's new ones that I've built relationships with, and they will all tell you, Toya says it how it is. She's very clear and she's very concise, and they like that. And I sometimes feel like they need the structure. Some of these agencies, I told you in the beginning of this episode, they need project managing. Me, I'm happy to manage them, and they won't even realize I'm managing them. No. And they will say, oh, you know, it's, you know, I'm doing everything for your interest. No, you're doing it for the interest of your commission. And I respect that. But equally, I have to do things to the best interest of my career and my development. And whilst I don't need to tell them that all the time, I need to have that at the back of my mind every time I deal with agencies. So there was a lady that called me up recently about a particular role. And basically they had an old CV of mine. So she just wanted to check if I'm still looking for contracting work, or would I consider like fixed term contracts. Now, because of IR35, and I will go on to that a bit later on, I have to open up my mind to the possibility of fixed term contracts. It's not a preference, but I'm reacting to the way the market is reacting. So I said that to her, and I said, listen, ideally in a utopia, I want another contract, but I will, open up my mind to the possibility of a fixed term contract, but these are the criteria that I would expect. I want flexible working, 2 days a week from home. This is how much I expect to receive. Has to be based in London. I need a really relaxed working atmosphere, so I don't want anything corporate. There was a list of it. And she said, okay, Toya, well, this role seems to be right up your street. She sent me the job description. Had a look at the job description, but we'd already discussed, and she'd admitted that the job description needs to be updated. So when I went back to her in an email, I said, listen, further to our conversation, obviously I didn't say listen, but further to our conversation, I've had a review of the job description that you've sent over to me. These are my concerns. We have discussed this already, but for the avoidance of doubt, I just wanted to make it clear in the email. On the basis of what we discussed and the contents of this job description, pending updating, I give you permission to submit me my CV to this particular organisation. She came back to me and she says, Toya, I was looking through the CV and there wasn't a lot of procurement, and I know that you have procurement experience and the qualification. So could you update it for me and resend it? I sent her an email. Hi, Jennifer, let's call her. If you look at paragraph you will see that I have detailed my procurement experience. You will also recall the conversation that we had yesterday where I said to you I lean towards contract management, and therefore if I was to consider a fixed term contract role, it would have to be head of a department for contract management or contract operations. The experience that I have in the procurement field is something that I am proud of, but I find procurement quite boring. Therefore, I would prefer a role that is more contract orientated. Then I got another email. Hi, Toya. Sorry, I was looking at your old CV. I can see on your new CV where you do indeed have the procurement experience that I think that they would be looking for. However, I also recall you saying that you do lean more towards the contract side, and I can definitely see that very much highlighted in your CV. I know that they do want somebody who's more contract, but wants that person to also have the procurement experience. My mistake. Yeah. So she wants to bully me into updating my CV so that, because all she's thinking about is her commission, but I'm not interested in procurement. I know how to do procurement. I've got the qualification in procurement because I was responding to the market. And for my particular field, it's not enough to just have contract management. You need to understand procurement. But that's not what I want. That's not what where my career is focused. It's contracts, negotiating contracts, it's drafting contracts, it's managing contracts, it's managing and dealing with risk and signing off on business risk. I love all of that. I'm looking for a head of department role if I'm going to consider a fixed term contract, and I'm clear about my expectations. And you see, there's no back and forth because I've told her what it is and she respects me enough for it. She's like, oh, no problem. And she's like, oh, I've submitted you. Yeah, because it's in her interest that I get a role. But I know that she's probably got 4 or 5 other candidates that she's submitting to. You're not going to be my headache. No. I hope from the example I just gave that you realise that some of these recruiters don't even read your CV properly, It's only maybe if they've submitted it to an organisation and then the organisation have specific questions about your CV that they think then to ask you about it. There are some agencies that will interrogate you about certain gaps in your CV. I was unemployed. Like, what do you want me to say? I was travelling. I wasn't travelling. I was travelling to the job centre. Is that what you want me to write? No, I was unemployed. I wasn't working. Or I took some time off. You are allowed to take some time off in between your career, I've done it. After each contract, I take time off. I need to recuperate from the madness of white privilege in the office. Yeah, I gotta rest. But be confident in your CV. Listen, if an agency has called you, it's because they see something in your CV that aligns to a job requirement. And ultimately, I think you need to give yourself a bit more credit about what you bring to the table as a potential candidate. Sometimes it's difficult as a new employee or a new person on the job market when you don't have any experience. And this is why I always say it's really, really important. Try and get experience where you can. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you guys to take unpaid work, because I'm so sorry. In my career, I've never taken unpaid work. I can't, because I got bills to pay, and I've been paying my bills on my own since the age of 18. So I can't now be relying on I can't say. And then you're telling me I should work for free. No, and I think it's less so now. I think definitely when I was growing up, working for free was the thing. But even that didn't guarantee you a paid role after, or a paid role at all. I think now it's less like that. I think a lot more roles are paid, even though it's not paid a lot of money, they're still paid, because companies back in the day, they weren't even paying for your transport. They just expect you to turn up and be happy in the morning when you know that you've been borrowing from Tom and Thomas to get to work, because they're not paying you. That's crazy. But yeah, I think it's really important that you should have confidence in yourself. No matter how desperate you are for a role, never give away the leverage that you have, i.e. the experience and everything you bring to the table, as a negotiating factor for a particular role. If you get the job, if you go for an interview, you're submitted for an interview and you get the job, it's a fantastic feeling. It's a fantastic feeling knowing that you did the work. If all the recruiter did was send your CV, you're the one that took that your Lexus to the train station or the bus to go to that interview, and you secured the job and the bag at the same time. Be proud of yourself, but don't be afraid to negotiate certain things. You get the contract. So usually the contract will come through the agency, or it might come through directly from the organization with the agency on copy. Mark up the contract. If you don't know how to mark up a contract, come to Toya Talks in 2020. I will show you how to do it. If you want to negotiate a salary, come to Toya Talks in 2020. I will give you the science behind negotiating salary and promotion. Do you know that I've been offered a job before and I've not been happy with the job title? I've managed to negotiate a change in job title. Yeah. Me. Oh, me. Oh my God. Oh yes. Listen, all them times my mum was going to Dalston Market and taking me and negotiating on fruit and veg, I was learning the basic skills of negotiation. I now take it into potential organizations and agencies to come and negotiate what I want. I love it. And the thing is, I am in a career where all I do is negotiate contracts. It's a blessing. Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I've got a nose on negotiation, but when I've got a nose on certain things, I've got yes on others. It needs to be a win-win. They can't be winning, i.e. winning me to come and work there and I'm not getting anything in return. Listen, I need to have an organization that I'm working at that benefits both of us mutually. About that, because we have an episode about negotiation, and of course Toy Talks Live, I'll be doing it there. But yeah, I hope that covers everything about agencies. I hope that when I switch this thing off, things won't be coming to my brain. But yeah, I just felt really, really compelled to do one about agencies, because agencies, they move mad, and I find that they move mad when the market is slower. That's when they move mad the worst, because when they manage to maybe get a role with an organization, and maybe there's not enough candidates, when they find a particular candidate, they will latch on to it and gaslight you. Oh, no. Don't be afraid to ask them questions, those difficult questions, and they don't come back with answers. Make sure you ask them for follow-up. Yeah, you have to listen. They need to earn the commission. They need to work for the commission. And sometimes you'll go into interviews and the interviewer will say, how much are you expecting for this role? Maybe in that situation, it's weird because they should know how much the job has been advertised with the agency. But what they're trying to do is get you on the cheap. In those situations, say, when it comes to salary and things like that, I have shared with the agency what my salary expectations are. And they did ask that I leave it to them to discuss salary with you. Full stop. Then when you get back home, you call the agency and say, listen, this is the question I was asked. This is how much I'm going to expect. And they'll say, yeah, that's what we put you forward for. Yeah, some of these businesses, they try and pull a fast one. Make sure. Don't take it for granted that, an agency will represent you. Make sure you get clarification. If money is really, really important to you, make sure that is abundantly clear what your salary expectations are, and that is communicated to an organization before they've even asked you for an interview. Don't go and waste your time there. Transport is not cheap. Every January it goes up. It's very expensive. Remember how we started this episode? An employment agency is the intermediary between you and an organization. They are the cushion. Utilize them. Sometimes those difficult conversations you don't want to have with an organization, you have it with the agency, and make the agency have those difficult conversations on your behalf. Because effectively, these agencies are representing you for this particular role. If you're not happy with something that you've seen in the contract, utilize the agency to communicate that to the organization. You have to utilize them or use them as a sounding board, but don't settle. Don't allow an agency to make you settle for a role that you genuinely don't want. So I want to touch on quickly IR35. So this is more towards contractors. I know I have a few contractors that follow me on social media and obviously on my podcast as well. So a brief overview on IR35. So I work outside of IR35, and that basically means I work through my limited company, and therefore I do not pay tax at source. I pay tax, and it's my accountant who basically works out how much tax I pay. I also charge VAT on my invoices, and therefore I'm VAT registered, so I have to pay a portion of that VAT to HMRC. I also pay corporation tax, income tax, whatever tax that I pay, whatever it is, it's my accountant that works that out. And working outside IR35 means basically I have no manager. I don't work for the organisation. I actually contract my services through an agency. And it's actually the agency that's my client. And the organisation is the client of the agency. So if I could, I don't know how to say it easier, but there is me, who is the company. I contract my services to agency A. And then an organisation says, I need the service of a contract consultant. They go to the agency, and the agency says, oh, well, we have a contract with Toya. Therefore, we're quite happy then to ask her to come to your organisation, and you can use her services through us. And what happens is I send an invoice, or it's like the process is actually automatic. I fill out like a timesheet, and it generates an invoice, or I can generate an invoice. I send it to the agency pay me. I don't care whether the business pays the agency. It's not my business, because I don't have a contract with the organisation. The agency has the contract with the organisation. The agency pay me whatever my payment terms are. It could be weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever. The agency pay me. Now, if you work within IR35, what that effectively means is you pay taxes at source. So the same way if you were a perm employee, it's the organisation that pays the tax on your behalf. It's the same if you're inside IR35. You don't get any expenses, whereas if you work outside of IR35, you get expenses. So my transport to work, my food, everything, I get other perks and stuff through my limited company. My business account pays for that. But if you are working inside IR35, you have no expenses whatsoever. So if you need to pay for your travel, whatever is left minus your taxes is what you will use to do that. And the main difference is tax. I would say there's a few other things, but that in a nutshell is what it is. And when you work within IR35, you do not, and when I say work within IR35, you work within it, and you can basically through an umbrella company, and a lot of these agencies have preferred umbrella companies or double up as an umbrella company. You also have to pay like a fee to use their umbrella company. You get holidays through the umbrella company, but you don't get like 25-day leave or whatever. I think it depends on how much you work, and then you acquire the holiday. You get no pension, and you have no employment rights. Now, my problem is, actually, before I get into my problem, so the introduction of IR35 in the private sector on the 6th of April 2020 basically now removes the decision or the onus from the contractor, i.e. me, about whether I work inside or outside, and they give that responsibility to determine that to an organisation. So what HMRC have said is, if somebody is working outside of IR35 and they're supposed to work inside of IR35, we are going to penalise those businesses and the contractor. And they will have to pay back taxes if they've been working for this organisation for, say, 6 months, when they're working outside when they should have worked inside IR35. And they will fine the organisation. And basically, the driving force of this whole introduction of IR35 in the private sector is to remove people who are contracting disguised as so they're disguised as employees, so they're disguised as contractors when they're really employees, and it's really hitting us hard. It's hitting us hard as contractors because it's more lucrative for us to work outside of IR35. I get expenses, I get perks, I get this, I get that. Yes, I pay tax, but there is higher risk for me. You know, I have to get insurance, I have to pay for an accountant, you know, whereas when you work inside IR35, I don't even think you have to get insurance. I don't know, but there is no benefit. You know, I have to have a private pension. I have to pay, you know, there is a lot of risk assumed for somebody who works outside of IR35. Now, the IR35 status has already been introduced in the public sector, and we were hoping that it wouldn't be introduced into the private sector, but it is. And what that actually means is a lot of roles now that we're seeing as contractors who work outside of IR35 are now inside scope, so inside IR35. And I've had to think about what I'm going to do. So my current contract ends in May, and I don't know whether they're going to extend. Whether they do or not, I kind of don't want them to, because I don't know, I'm kind of over it where I'm contracting at the moment, because they're not utilising what I bring to the table because they're resistant to change. But if they wanted to extend from a financial perspective, yes, I'd want to extend. But the reality is I need to think about my business here, because they do a lot of things that are very, very questionable, and that would put my business at risk of being inside IR35. So I'd really have to have a conversation with myself and speak to my accountant about whether I would accept an extension. And I've had to also consider the prospect of, I hate saying it, but a perm role. I'm so not a perm employee. I'm so much a contractor now. I've really embraced it. So I guess the happy medium is a fixed term contract, because I think that rather than take a role that's inside IR35 and work through an umbrella company, I might as well take a fixed term contract or a perm role, get my pension, get my holidays, and have my employment rights. Whereas if you're umbrella company inside scope, you don't have any employment rights. At least as a contractor, you know you have no employment rights, but equally the organisation deal with you differently because they know you're a contractor. Do you understand? They treat you like a business, or they should be treating you like a business. So that's kind of, hopefully in a nutshell, without it confusing anybody, what IR35 is and its effects. I'm definitely, you know, going to think about kind of what I want to do. But one thing that contracting has done for me is it's exposed me to financially really enjoying the financial perks of having skills like a contract manager, and I'm in a niche industry, so I've been able to charge a day rate that's a premium, and I've had the financial benefits of having a niche career, if you like. I've been able to progress quite quickly within my industry. So I was always, I think I can't say I was always, I'd say in the last 5 years I was a senior. But now I'm more head of department now. You know, I've gone in, I've done a lot of transformations within organisations of their contract management team and structure. I know how to put in the policies. I know how to manage a team. I've line managed before in previous roles. But this contracting has really enabled me to fast track my progression. It's also given me a lot of confidence when dealing with companies, because as a contractor, you might do 6 months here, 3 months there, 9 months there, 10 months there. And I've gone in and you have to hit the ground running. So I think it's kind of prepared me to go into organizations, see the issues and just hit the ground running and know what I have to do. It's also re-emphasized the confidence I have in myself, in my career and in my field, that I know what I'm doing. And I've learned a lot, and I've worked for some really dysfunctional companies as a contractor, and you learn how to put function around dysfunction. I've met a lot of people, a lot of contractors, a lot of perm employees. I've had the opportunity also to be exposed to different industries, and I have really, really enjoyed contracting. It's given me the freedom to work on things outside of, say, my day-to-day career, i.e. Toya Talks and my brand. And it's really given me the opportunity to understand how a business works, and working with an accountant and understanding how taxes and things like that work as well. And I wouldn't have really known that if I continued to stay in perm. I'd reached a crossroads in my career, and I knew that I needed to contract to be able to grow, to be able to learn more, and to be able to really focus on kind of what I want from my career. And I love it a lot. I know that recently I was told by one of my Snap followers, who's also a contractor, that in order to work outside of IR35, she's had to basically take a role outside London. And that definitely is a consideration for me too, because I don't really want to give up working as a contractor because all the roles are inside IR35. If a role is outside IR35, paying higher, because outside London they'll pay higher for the, especially my field, they'll pay higher, and it's outside London, I definitely will consider it. If it means Monday to Friday having to live in Bristol or live out of a hotel and come home Friday night for the weekend, I'm prepared to consider that for maybe a 6-month contract, earning an exorbitant amount of money per day. Of course I will. It's given me the financial ability to do certain things that I know would take me longer as a perm employee, even though I know that my yearly salary as a head of department or senior role would be quite good. It is never better than being a contractor. So hopefully that's helped you guys, because I know I get a lot of questions about contracting, IR35, what it means. And I've also become an IR35 specialist as well. So I go into organisations and I'm able to educate them about IR35 and give them the business readiness they need to be able to prepare themselves for the impending IR35, because a lot of organisations don't understand it properly, are worried about being hit with a penalty. And it's not like £1,000, like we're talking about millions of pounds that they could be hit with if they classify somebody as outside IR35 that's supposed to be inside IR35. And it's not just about how classifying someone, it's how they classify somebody and the way the person works. If the person's integral to the business, the likelihood is that they work inside IR35. If they're not, and it's a project based with clear deliverables, the likelihood is that they'll sit outside. Obviously it's a bit more than that, but just like high level, that's kind of how it works. So I've become an IR35 specialist. I consult on IR35 specifically, as well as my contracting and stuff like that, my contract management or whatever. And I love what I do. So hopefully that's helped you guys about IR35 and understanding its implications and things like that. If anybody wants to contract my services as a consultant on IR35, then my email address is toya, toya.talks, talksinc @gmail.com. And obviously, you guys know you can connect with me on social media. The hashtag is Toya Talks. Twitter handle is Toya, TOYA_W. The Toya Talks Instagram page is Toya, TOYA_talks. And of course, my personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. My name has been Toya Washington, and this has been the Toya Talks podcast.